It happened quietly, without fanfare or flashing cameras. In a Los Angeles hospital room, Peggy Lipton, once the face of cool rebellion in 1960s America, closed her eyes for the final time, her daughters holding her hands. The woman who had once embodied effortless grace and quiet strength, who had made every glance on screen feel like a secret, was gone. Yet in those final hours, there was no tragedy, only peace. For Peggy's story was never about fame alone, it was about transformation, love, and the courage to face life's soft and brutal turns. But long before the lights of Hollywood found her, she was just a shy girl searching for her place in a world that often misunderstood her. Her story began in New York City in 1946. Born Margaret Ann Lipton, she grew up in a middle-class Jewish family with strict parents and a restless imagination. Her father was a corporate lawyer, her mother an artist, and young Peggy found herself caught between two worlds, discipline and dream. She was a quiet child, fragile and introspective, who loved poetry and music more than school dances. But behind her gentleness was a deep longing to be seen, to be heard in a world that preferred louder voices. Modeling came first, her beauty was impossible to ignore, and by her teens, she was posing for magazines. Her large brown eyes already carrying that hint of melancholy that would later captivate audiences. Hollywood came calling soon after. She moved west in the early 1960s, still barely more than a teenager, and signed a contract with Universal. It wasn't an easy beginning. She was soft-spoken, painfully shy, and often overshadowed by more confident starlets. Casting directors told her she was too sensitive or too introspective. But that quiet vulnerability, the very thing they dismissed, would one day become her greatest strength. Her early TV roles in Bewitched, The Alfred Hitchcock Hour, and The Virginian were small but revealing. Behind her delicate frame was a woman who could say more with a single look than most actors could with a page of dialogue. Then came 1968, the year that changed everything. Peggy Lipton was cast as Julie Barnes in The Mod Squad, a groundbreaking television series about three counterculture cops working undercover. Julie wasn't just another character, she was a symbol. With her long blonde hair, natural beauty, and introspective cool, Peggy became the face of a generation. She wasn't pretending to be hip, she was hip. Julie Barnes represented freedom, rebellion, and empathy at a time when America was in turmoil. Young women saw her as a mirror. Young men saw her as a dream. Overnight, Peggy Lipton became a star, an Emmy-nominated actress, and a fashion icon. Her image graced magazine covers, her name whispered like a secret among teenagers who wanted to live like her, love like her, be her. But beneath the fame, Peggy remained haunted by her own insecurities. The pressure of success, the weight of perfection, and the emotional scars of her strict upbringing began to surface. She suffered from anxiety and bouts of depression, often retreating from the world to find quiet spaces where she could breathe. It was during one of these quieter moments that she met the man who would change her life, music legend Quincy Jones. Their worlds couldn't have been more different. She, the gentle Hollywood star with fragile nerves. He, the confident jazz genius whose music defined an era. Yet somehow, they fit. In 1974, they married in a ceremony that drew both admiration and controversy. Interracial marriage was still taboo in some corners of America, but Peggy never cared about the whispers. She followed her heart. Their marriage brought her what she had long craved, a family, stability, and a new rhythm to her life. Together, they had two daughters, Kid Ada and Rashida, both of whom would later follow creative paths of their own. For more than a decade, Peggy stepped back from Hollywood, devoting herself to motherhood and music. She recorded albums, wrote poetry, and tried to find herself outside the limelight. Yet even in that domestic peace, cracks began to appear. Quincy's demanding career, constant travel, and the pressures of fame strained their relationship. By 1989, after years of trying to hold it together, they divorced. Peggy was heartbroken, yet she never spoke ill of him. "We loved each other deeply," she would later say, "but sometimes love alone isn't enough." The world might have forgotten her then, but fate had other plans. In the early 1990s, David Lynch cast her as Norma Jennings in Twin Peaks. The role was quiet, soulful, and mysterious, everything Peggy herself had become. As the warm-hearted diner owner who served coffee and pie to a town full of secrets, she became a cult favorite all over again. It was a second bloom, a poetic return for a woman who had always carried her own secrets beneath that serene smile. Audiences who remembered the Mod Squad saw in her the same tenderness, now tempered by wisdom and loss. She had aged gracefully, with lines that told stories and eyes that still held light, but just when life seemed to come full circle, darkness returned. In 2004, Peggy was diagnosed with colon cancer. True to her nature, she faced it quietly, never using it for attention, never letting it define her. Her daughters became her anchors, standing beside her with the same grace she had shown them. Even as her body weakened, her spirit never did. She continued to act, appearing in the 2017 Twin Peaks revival, her presence as magnetic as ever. Those final appearances carried a bittersweet truth. She was saying goodbye, not just to her fans, but to the world that had both made and misunderstood her. In May 2019, Peggy Lipton passed away at the age of 72. The world mourned, but her daughters spoke of peace, not sorrow. She made her journey surrounded by love, they said. And that was Peggy's legacy, not the fame, not the fashion, but the love. Love for her family, for art, for simplicity. When you look at her most private photos, you see it all: the girl with the wide eyes and shy smile, the woman who became a symbol of change, the mother who found peace in small moments. You see her sitting barefoot on a studio floor, laughing with her daughters, her beauty unguarded and real. That's the Peggy Lipton the world should remember, not the icon, but the soul behind it. Her life was never about perfection, it was about authenticity. She showed us that strength can be soft, that beauty can be quiet, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply be yourself. If Peggy Lipton's story touched your heart, if her journey from shy dreamer to timeless icon inspires you, take a moment to honor her memory. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more untold stories of Hollywood's most unforgettable women, because every star leaves a light behind, and Peggy still shines.